day. In this episode, we're making stops in 2 different decades and checking out 2 different races, but it all takes place at one track, Rockingham. The first Cup race at Carolina Motor Speedway was in 1965, and Bud was there.
They restyled Richard's Plymouth on this one. It's not quite as aerodynamic now. He got out and said, how am I ever going to be a winner if this keeps up?
Then we're speeding ahead to 1973 to see who took the checker. All of your wishes will come true, and your head will spin as we spend 8 years of racing at the Rock. Stay tuned. There's more to come.
Teddy with the lead. Can he do it?
Well, come on, let's go back in the day. It's a shame we don't race at North Carolina Motor Speedway anymore, but I guess with time comes change. Well, in this show, I'd like to pay tribute to the track known as the Rock, and what better place to start than the very beginning. This track was built in 1965, and the first race held there was the American 500 on October 31st. Now pay attention, because this was so long ago that even Bud was going back in the day.
You know, a very important ingredient in movie making is star value. Well, when it comes to producing a film on auto racing featuring superstars such as David Pearson, Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, well, you can almost bet it'll be a winner. And such was the case recently when we took off for Rockingham, North Carolina. A cast of 40 of racing's finest had gathered for the big go called the Carolina 500. But hey, on this one, we've done something a little different. The race begins at 12 noon. It's now 11:45, and the 40 fastest cars are lined up in pit row, ready to go for the 8th annual Carolina 500. Fastest qualifier, David Pearson in the Mercury, number 21, starts on the pole, with Benny Parsons alongside, then Richard Petty and Bobby Allison, followed by Buddy Baker, Dave Marcus, Jim Van Diver, Bobby Isaac. In the 5th row, it's Cale Yarborough and Cuckoo Marlin. 28 is Gordy Johncock. Some of the finest drivers in racing are about to climb aboard the fastest stock cars ever assembled on any track in America. While we waited for the race to start, I couldn't help but think that they weren't always this good. Experience is a driver's most important asset, and my mind began to wander back to 1965 and the first race ever held on this track. The cars weren't as fast or as sophisticated. The drivers, well, they had about 8 years less know-how. Richard Petty looks like a teenager. Freddie Lorenzen hadn't found out about long hair, and Junior Johnson had a whole lot less wrinkles back then. Richard Petty and Junior Johnson lead them around to the start, and when they got to the first corner, it looked like everybody forgot to turn left. After they got that one cleaned up, Junior Johnson in number 26 let them down for the restart, and they're off again. Johnson has the lead with Petty and Pearson punching out his taillight. And nowadays, Richard Petty and David Pearson never do anything like this. Look out! They restyled Richard's Plymouth on this one. It's not quite as aerodynamic now. He got out and said, how am I ever going to be a winner if this keeps up? Pearson's crew pried the fender away to give the wheel a little rolling room. Meanwhile, old Junior has the pistons panting in that Ford and grabs the green flag for another restart. Bobby Isaac moves up to battle with Junior Johnson for the lead. Perhaps you've also noticed that the cars didn't handle as well then as they do now. In this one, they kind of used the wall to stay on the track. The cars look like billiard balls. Number 42, Jim Pascal pits, jumps out, and Richard Petty climbs aboard to go back on the track. 41, Pops Turner pits for fuel and a drink. The Wood brothers get Mar Paunch in and out in a hurry. With so many cars in the pits, E.J. Trivett felt that he had the track to himself, so he spun it and crashed into the guardrail. Under the yellow flag, Richard Petty in number 42 moves up on the leader.
Man, how crazy is that? Richard Petty wrecks the 43, then gets back on the track in the 42. Well, like Bud said, Petty and Pearson, they went at it a lot back in the day, but you hardly ever saw them wreck each other like that. Stay tuned for more from The Rock.
Hey, there's Darrell Waltrip, David Pearson, Buddy Baker, Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, Benny Parsons. Look out, it's the king, Richard Petty.
It's good to be the king.
Who doesn't like going back in the day?
All right, guys, start your engines. Let's go back in the day. And the year was 1965. Welcome back. We're checking out a couple of races from Rockingham, and this one's 1965. They're getting ready to go back to green. Curtis Turner has the lead, and somehow Richard Petty's made his way back up to third after wrecking early on. We're going to jump to 1973 later, but let's see how 65 ends up.
When the green flag flies again, it's Curtis Turner with the lead, 21 Marv Paunch second, Richard Petty third. Petty drops down on the inside of Turner as they pour out of the fourth turn onto the tri-oval. Richard takes the lead. Another yellow flag, and Petty heads for the pits. He was a little nervous in those days. Then they told him the car popped a valve and he was all done. Back then, he probably wondered how he'd ever become a four-time Grand National champion. On the restart, it's Turner with the lead and Cale Yarborough a close second in the Ford number 27. Proves to be too much for the rest of the field and screams his Ford under the checkered flag winner and official christener of the brand new North Carolina Motor Speedway. That was 8 years ago. Now, here they are, ready for the green flag and the 1973 version of the Carolina 500. Pearson in the Mercury number 21 wins the drag into turn one and continues to stretch the lead as all cars pour into the second pocket. Down the back chute, Allison fires past Benny Parsons. At the end of the first lap, it's Pearson, Allison, Parson, and Petty. The Mercury wound out and running away from the pack. The Wood brothers have his car set up just right, but Petty and Yarborough are moving up and pacing themselves well. Already Pearson begins to lap the slower cars. If he can keep all the parts glued together, he's on his way to victory lane.
You see, even Bud likes going back in the day. Curtis Turner takes the checkered at the first race at Rockingham back in 1965. Ironically, that was Pops' last win in the Cup Series. Well, now we're going to jump to 1973, and you can see 8 years later the track's got a little more banking and a lot less cars going into the guardrail.
Stick around, because there's more to come when we go back in the day.